Is everyone ready? Today we wanted to hold this press conference to discuss an incident that happened earlier this morning. Present with me are Deputy Chief Myron Daniels, our Chief of Staff, Deputy Chief Darren Moses, our Deputy Chief of the Criminal Investigative Division, our Violent Crime Units Commander Kevin Heinz, our Detective Commander Captain Shanaud Carey, our Homicide Commander Lieutenant Brian Ballard, and our Major Assaults Commander Sergeant Dargen. This morning at approximately 1:36 a.m., Baton Rouge police officers responded to a shooting incident that occurred at 4619 Bennington Avenue at a nightclub called Dior. The report indicated that several people were shot inside the nightclub. We identified 12 people who were injured from injuries related to the shooting. When this incident occurred, there were 3 Baton Rouge police officers outside in the parking lot who immediately responded to the shooting incident. Those police officers immediately responded to the threat, and we believe their immediate response prevented further injuries. The officers were able to quickly secure the scene as well as administered life-saving aid until EMS and fire arrived to administer emergency medical services. This is an active investigation, and our detectives are currently in the field, exhausting all investigative efforts related to this case. And I'm going to ask Commander of our Homicide Division, Lieutenant Ballard, to provide information concerning injuries and investigations. Followed by Lieutenant Ballard, you will hear from Deputy Chief Myron Daniels to discuss investigative efforts involving the business. Lieutenant Ballard.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Brian Ballard. I'm the commander of the Homicide Division. As the chief said, we did respond to Bennington, at which point we knew that there were several persons injuring from a shooting at that location. We contacted other detectives with the Violent Crimes Unit and got as many detectives as we needed to necessarily process the scene and go to the various hospitals in the city of Baton Rouge to contact and check on the statuses of the victims. The number of victims that we have as of now were 12 that were struck by gunfire. We would consider 9 of those non-life-threatening injuries, but 3 of them were injuries that were life-threatening in nature. At this point, we can say that it is believed to be a targeted attack, and that this was not just a random act of someone showing up and randomly shooting citizens of Baton Rouge. At this point, like the chief said, we have detectives in the field following up on all leads, and they're researching anything and doing any type of follow-up that is necessary. Unfortunately, that's about all we can give at this time, because this is an active and ongoing investigation, and we don't want to damage the integrity of it at this point.
Good afternoon, Deputy Chief Myron Daniels. I am here to speak on the other side of the investigation, which is that regarding the business. Immediately, once the scene was secure, we reached out to Alcohol, Beverage, and Control to notify them of the incident. That is the agency that deals with the regulation of businesses that serve alcohol. From this point, they have stressed that they have assigned investigators to work in conjunction with our investigators on the matter. They have also clarified that some of the items that they will be looking into will be the security breach that occurred from the private security that was working at the event. They have also noted that the owners of the business are and have been cooperating throughout this process. And again, this is an ongoing investigation, and more information will be put out as it is brought forward. Thank you.
We'll take a few questions concerning this investigation. And I'm asking to be respectful. There are detail related to the investigation that we cannot release at this time, and I'm asking you to be respectful of that, that we have to get it right. I do understand the interest and everybody wanting information now, but remember, we have to get it right. And sometimes getting it right means I can't give you that information right now. But I do know that our detectives are working hard. You know, last night, early this morning, when I was on that scene, along with our Mayor President, Sharon Weston Brumman, to hear the pain and the families of the victims. Hilla Moore was out there as well with us, and watching our detectives work, the scene was a lot of evidence when you have that many people inside of a club, and trying to maintain that and find the right evidence that's going to help us identify the person or persons responsible for this. I want to reassure you that there is a lot of work that's going on, and we're going to work with the community. And that's why it's so important for someone who knows something, someone who heard something, to pick up the phone and call 344-STOP. Crime Stoppers is waiting. You can be anonymous, but it's important for you to get involved, because we know that someone out there knows information, has heard information that can help us in our investigative efforts. And I'm asking you to do that. And just like I've said before in prior incidents, we're not just looking for the calls from witnesses. We encourage that, we want that, and we support that. But there are people in the inner circle of the person who's responsible for this, the persons who were involved in this shooting incident. Their family members, their friends. There's someone who knows something. Do the right thing. You can save the next incident, because it's obviously that this person has total disregard for life. Do something about it. Don't let that be on your conscience if you learn that you could have done something today and that person or persons continued their efforts and somebody else was hurt. What if it's someone close to you? Do the right thing. 344-STOP. We'll take a couple of questions now.
Chief, do you know whether there was a single shooter or multiple shooters, or how many people fired shots inside the club?
That's not something that we wanted to comment on at this time. That's one of those things that may be discussed later.
Okay. Do you know what type of firearm was used in the shooting, based on the wounds or shell casings?
We
or
do.
recovered? What kind of firearm was it?
Again, that's part of the stuff that we can't talk about right now.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Did someone walk into the place and start shooting, or was the shooter already out?
I can say that the incident happened. It wasn't an immediate shooting, just walking inside.
And so how
That's
quick
it.
was the response for it all? I know y'all said that you had 3 officers outside. Was it just like an immediate response?
Almost immediate, almost instantaneous. Our guys got there and started doing what they do.
Are you guys considering this a mass shooting, and how many people were in the club when the shooting happened?
I don't think.
We don't know the exact number of people who were inside the club. As Deputy Chief Myron Daniels stated earlier, that is part of that investigation. We started having contact with our counterparts at ABC who's a regulatory agency involved in this, and all of that will be revealed once that investigation has concluded.
Are you guys considering this a mass shooting or?
Well, any time we have this many people who are shooting, who are hurt, obviously it's concerning. We investigate all of these incidents the same, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That number does not determine our investigative efforts, right? Our detectives are going to investigate this incident just like we investigate all, and that is with a cooperation with the community. And that's one of the keys here, right? Because we know that there's information. We know that we do have some information coming in. And we know that this community is being energized in a way. We just had a community walk the other day. All of you covered that with family members who have turned pain into purpose. And there's some great takeaways that came away from that meeting, from the community walk that happened outside that meeting, when members in our community saw law enforcement and family members of victims who of violence walking side by side with us and willing to give us a little more information, are willing to provide information to someone who's walking with us. And for whatever reason may not have wanted to provide that information to one of my officers, but were comfortable and willing to have that conversation with one of our community members and taking that information back and seeing, giving it to our detectives and see how we can use that in our investigative efforts. So there are a lot of things going on. And I know when we have incidents like this, it feels like it takes us back, right? It takes us back. You don't always see the great work that's going on. But I can tell you that we are committed to our investigative efforts. I think we have one of the best police departments in America. And I mean that. We have great detectives. And we're going to continue to investigate this until we identify the person or persons responsible.
One more question.
Do we know anything about the victims right now? Are there any students or all the people from Baton Rouge? Do we have any information about that?
I do know they're from various cities throughout the Baton Rouge capital area. They're not all from Baton Rouge at this time, but yes, we do know the locations where all of our victims are. We made contact with the families. The mayor and I was in the hospital last night talking to those family members. Some had already been released from the hospital when we got there, so we were not able to speak to every family members, but I can tell you that we have a praying mayor, and that all of those are on the prayer list, and I'm sure, and I know that all of the faith-based churches, all of those around our city were lifting the victims up today during Sunday service. Thank
You
you.
guys mentioned looking into the nightclub or security breach. Could you explain what that means?
Just looking at the entire process on how did someone get a gun inside this establishment.
Thank you.
Thank you.